your spirit is one with me. Your wings span the mighty ocean. Your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continents ring. Yet in all your mighty glory, vanished from the skies, leaving just another story between man-made lies. They tell of how you fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas, and my guest today is Bruce and Marianne Curtis. Hello, Bruce. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Clay. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having us on board.
Yeah, we were put together by a mutual friend, VK Durham, who posted a lot of fantastic information on there. I just call her Grandma.
Yeah, she's one of the great patriots and one of the great researchers of all time.
Yes, and one of the victims. You know, her husband was killed and tortured, and you know, she's persevered.
Yeah, she survived the great devastation, and they know she has the smoking gun evidence. In fact, I look at a lot of the problems the banking system's had now, and I think a good portion was due to some of the information she brought forward. God bless her. God bless VK, and Merry Christmas to everyone. Even though, you know, and let me say it to the Federal Reserve, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and yes, let's see, the Federal Reserve, they've kind of banned Christmas ornaments. No Christmas decorations at any Federal Reserve banks, or any banks, for that matter, I would think.
Yeah. And you can't say Merry Christmas. Wow, what a bank.
Sounds like communism to me.
Every plank on the Communist Manifesto intact in America today, starting, you know, with the, well, number 5. I guess they demoted it a little bit, you know, to central bank and heavily progressive graduated income tax.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing more happen. S510, and I want to talk to you about this because you guys are kind of in the food business and the water business and the whole, you know, if you can, why would they want to take over the food? Well, they always take over the food. They go after the farmers first. Anytime a communist regime becomes intact, they go after the farmers first because they don't want you being able to feed yourself. That's why plank number 9 is corporate farms. Can you say Monsanto, Junior?
Yeah. And you got it right. S510, Marianne and I are on the board of National Health Freedom Coalition and National Health Freedom Action. And we have worked on S510 trying to stop it. And I'll tell you, that is a true food fascism bill. It's the destruction of so many things in America if people don't stand up and just say no.
Well, it goes further than that. Let's see, one of your other websites is Living Water USA. Now, you know, God pretty much gave us everything we need. You know, you put a leaf under the rain, and you can stay alive and drink the water there. But unless you live in Colorado, where it's illegal to have a rain barrel.
That's right.
Or New Mexico, where they want to put a meter on your well because you might be watering too much, you're watering that garden too much.
But all you Colorado folks, if you need water, just go to Bill Clinton and Maurice Strong, and I'm sure they'll arrange some water rights for you.
That's right. That's right. They got a little in there, you know.
They can tax you accordingly and put a nice couple $100 water bill on your monthly payment.
Well, now this is the problem. I think I had a solution for it. I think it had a solution for it. It's called Liberty Villages, and you guys have been there. Basically, it's pretty simple. You instead of living in 2,000 square foot houses with cobwebs in the corner, you live in portable structures or movable structures, teepees, yurts, cabins, trailers, and you grow your own food, and you harness the wind and the sun. We certainly have the technology to do that today. I mean, for God's sake, some itinerant Africans in a village in the middle of the Congo put a wind generator on his roof and was watching TV. You know, so we've got it there, but what do you got? All the naysayers out there. Oh, well, they wouldn't let you do that. Oh, they'd call it a compound. Oh, well, that's why I would let the Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan veterans live there, in return for protecting the place. Just like what happened in South Africa, what happened in the Ukraine, they sent the gangs into the farms and to the ranchers. They're doing the same thing in the South here in Arizona, and right now we've had ranchers killed. They're sending the gangs over to raid them. It's all happening again, right here in this country. This time it's happening again, and in my True Face of FEMA, they actually told us about that. They said, oh yeah, in case of a single outbreak of smallpox, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people. They don't want the American people to defend themselves.
Yeah, and let's talk about that smallpox outbreak. Let's see, the last time we had a smallpox outbreak, I believe it was the federal government putting in the blankets to kill all the Indian people.
Yes, matter of fact, I'll have a few American Indians on the Lakota tribal chiefs. Their auditor, William Blair, will be on my, and Nancy Red Star was just on my show. Please take notes and send that to the notify the NAACP and the ADL and the Southern Poverty Law that Clay Douglas isn't a racist. And I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm not anti myself, I'm pretty sure I'm a Semite. Aren't you a Semite?
We are. And yet here we are on your show.
Yes. What we're talking about is truth. I just had Gordon Duff on. He's with Veterans USA. Brilliant man, and he's confirming everything that we're saying here. We are under attack. We are being groomed to be slaves. And I'm starting to question exactly how far back that goes.
Well, it certainly goes back thousands of years. If you really want to tie the origins of what we like to call the Rotten Roman cult, which is Mystery Babylon, the Rotten Roman cult thinks they can own the land, and that's why your friends complain about zoning laws. They think the Rotten Roman cult, that the Pope in 1215 was actually correct when he said all land belongs to me. Well, it ain't true. It just doesn't. All the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Don't tell me it's the Lord. I mean, this is where the Native Americans scared the Jesuits coming onto this continent, because they showed them that they knew more than they did.
That's right. We again, what you're saying here is echoing what I've been telling people. We followed the wrong model. We should have followed civilized this country and worked in this country the way the Indians did. We followed the wrong role model. We built it on like a European basis. The house on the blocks instead of families living and working together.
That's right. Yeah, and they told us too. They said follow the good red road, but no, they wouldn't. They followed the black road, and then look where it got us.
And they had respect for the earth, and they lived to be 7 generations out. They tried to think how it was going to affect 7 generations to come.
It's the elder. Today, Grandpa's getting a little old. Put him in a nursing home. Well, you know what? My grandfather taught me to read. I could read 1,000 words a minute by the time I got into the 1st grade. My grandfather taught me to do that. In my concept, Liberty Villages, which maybe it's idealistic. I think it's just the basis of all civilization, the self-sufficient family farm. Your old people would be there to take care of and watch and instruct the grandchildren, while the parents are out working, creating windmills, creating this, creating that, and making a living better for everybody.
Right. I think still happens somewhat Kansas here. I think there's people that still keep their elderly living with the family. The elderly get to kind of watch the kids in the morning when they go off to work. I think there's still fragments of that. So I don't think you're totally pie in the sky. I think it really is something we have to come back to, and to realize that we are here to work integratively together. And I think people have been afraid that in a group or a community you just become ruled by an authority. They just kind of have the federal government. Everybody wants to just stand alone and keep to themselves because they're afraid of losing their own liberty and freedom, which is what is done in a large way in this country. So I think you're absolutely right on the mark. I think it really is about learning to live together and realize that we can have autonomy within a community.
You know, somebody, one of my critics out there said, well, Clay doesn't even have a garden. That's because I'm living in a trailer park in Tucson in a fifth wheel trailer, you know, and I can't pull it with a Harley. So no, you know, no, I'm not growing a garden right now. But, you know, if we took over farms back in the 1930s, the 30% of Americans lived and worked on farms. That's why we survived the Depression.
That's right.
And today, 2%. You know, because they've switched to the whole communist thing of government-controlled agriculture, plank number 7, and corporate farms, plank number 9.
And Clay, your website shows that beautifully with the picture of the empty shelves, that we are literally days from empty shelves in the grocery stores, and people don't really even know it.
You know, the kids are growing up today, and you know, these inner city kids, they don't even know where French fries come from. You know, they don't even understand where, you know, blueberries come from. And that's what they're finding is that when they take the inner city kids that are really into gangs and into hard stuff, and they're carrying guns at the age of 12 and younger, and they take them out into nature, and that's where they start to equalize. You know, we have so far gotten away from nature, it's like our kids don't even know where the food comes from anymore. And it's so important.
You know, the computer provides us with valuable links to information. We can get more information now than we ever could before. But it also isolates us. And the concept behind Liberty Villages, yeah, you got your own house over there, you want to go over there, you want to do whatever you want to in your house, and when you come out here in the civilization, you know, you follow basically golden rules, you know?
Yeah, and we, you know, it's not just our culture, but around the world they worry about this. We had a good friend who was a professor of Islamic studies at American University in Washington, D.C., and she journeyed through the Middle East, and she talked to the head of Islamic youth, the head of youth of the Coptic Church in Egypt, and his great worry was the children in Egypt were turning away from their family, turning into the computer and entering another world, and it was breaking up the family. So we're finding this breakdown of family and community throughout the world, and the computer can be a tool for good, but it also can be used as a tool of division and separation, which is the way, part of the way it's evolved in our society.
Yeah, I want to talk about that right now. Well, I said the enemy's main strategy is probably the oldest, according to Sun Tzu, it's the oldest in history. It's called divide and conquer. And that's what's happening in the Patriot movement. I made the comment, you know, no Patriot talk show will have me on. Well, I wrote a book called Mystery Babylon that's got all the information, got the history of the Rothschilds in it, got Operation Watchtower, the drug dealing CIA, Mossad, operation protected by George Bush, and that little governor up in Arkansas that kept Mena Airport clear so Barry Seal could bring the drugs in. All that's in Mystery Babylon, along with the whole idea that maybe the Jews, maybe the Khazarians from the middle of the steppes of Russia, the Genghis Khans out there, aren't exactly the angelic people that the Talmud would have you believe.
Exactly. Well, you know, it's interesting because it's Christmas Eve, and one of Jesus's best friends, his apostle John, made very clear distinctions about this fact of Jews, that some people call themselves Jews, but they're not really of the tribe of Judah. They're Jews who are not Jews, and this is what we're up against. We're up against another whole group of people that took over and basically hijacked a religion, and now is using the defense of anti-Semitism just to defend their wicked dogmas. And we're under the thumb of that, you know, whether it's the Anti-Defamation League, Southern Poverty Law Center, and then, of course, you mentioned the Mossad. I mean, the whole Israel is actually, sad to say, it's really just a Rothschild state. And this is, in so much, is being maneuvered by these people who claim to be Jews, and yet they are not. So this is not an anti-Semitic statement. It's a statement of history. It's a statement of fact. It's a statement of real manipulation on the stage of our planet. And, you know, I think the people are standing up right now and saying, you're done. We're going to pull out your tent pins. You can fold up your tent. You're going home. The show is over.
Now we're talking about 2% of the population of the United States here that are Jewish. And now if the person living across the street from you is Jewish, and the neighbor living beside you is Muslim, it really doesn't make a rat's ass.
Yeah.
The Constitution gives you the right to worship any way you want. You want to hug trees? No problem. You want to bend over, stick your nose in the ground, stick your ass up in the air? I'll just try to keep the snake and dart away from you, you know? I'll try to keep him out of your yard. You want to bow to Mecca? No problem. And, you know, I've almost got the same kind of attitude towards Christians. I believe in Jesus, and I'm willing to celebrate this day. I don't know that this a day. I don't know. But I'm willing to celebrate that because the words of Jesus, just like Thomas Jefferson, cut all of the words of Paul and everybody else out, left the words of Jesus in his Bible, the Thomas Jefferson Bible. You know, I got no problem with that. I just think that the church has interceded and uses his name in ways that aren't good for you. Or as the Pauline Christians say, you know, be a good slave, don't rebel against your masters.
Very well said, Clay, because it's not just Judaism that's been hijacked, but Christianity was hijacked, and now it doesn't even resemble. I mean, the thing that Christ wanted the most was to really have people grow up and to be their true nature, not to be these groveling, self-centered, egotistical, competitive people, but to grow up into the true divine nature. And here, then, instead of that, this rotten Roman cult has put up a worship system where you worship the door instead of going through the door. I mean, he said, I am the door. Instead of going through the door and becoming that way, becoming loving and giving, people just stop and worship the door and then go back to business as usual, screwing one another. That's a ridiculous system.
Well, it's a criminal system. You know, I've had Jeff Gates on my show. He's got a book out called Guilt by Association. How deception and self-deceit took America to war. And he says the corruption that plagues American politics is traced to an alliance with elites and extremists loyal to the land of Israel. Israel is a safe haven for crime lords. It's a safe house for crime. And this is organized crime. It's worldwide organized crime. The mafia here in this country. Let's see, who started that? Oh, you wanna blame Al Capone? I'm sorry. It was Meyer Lansky that never went to jail.
Yeah, there you go. We're getting to the roots of it. And what's sad is, you mentioned the division, divide and conquer in the Patriot movement, and we've got both of the problems you just talked about. We got people hijacking Jesus to run their own Patriot program, and then you have people who want to set themselves up as a new king. I mean, we don't need a king. We're not looking for a king. And yet people are just erecting these kings one after another to run the Patriot movement, whether it's a Sam Kennedy or a Tim Turner. I mean, you name it, but it's not helping people to stand up on the land and assert their divine sovereignty at all.
Well, it's kind of interesting, too, because, here's people, just in the Bible, God was doing everything. Yahweh was doing everything for the people, and people said, we want a king. And he's like, you don't need a king. We want a king. He said, all right, you get him, but, it's like, you're not going to like it. It's the exact same thing that's happening in, the sovereignty movement, patriot movement, whatever you want to call it, people are looking for a leader. Well, guess what? If you're actually in this movement, you're supposed to be realizing that God is your Lord and King and over you, and no one else has authority over you. And that's the whole point. And that means we have to work together in hierarchies of responsibility. It's not about having a king. It's not about having a leader. Yeah, people will, naturally go into different roles, and some people have more wisdom, and so you might want to talk to them about certain things. But it's really about us moving together collectively on an equal platform, and then just allowing people to do what they do best. And that is so foreign. There are no models out there for that. We are really moving into a new model of living. It is truly a republic, truly respecting other people to do what they want. Like you said, you can worship how you want, you can grow, hemp that used to grow wild in this land.
If we take the Liberty Village concept, now, they keep accusing me of being racist. That's just propaganda. That's just bull to try to keep people from listening to me. But if we take the Liberty Village model and we go out and we use that to restore the family farms or ranches out there, we raise our own animals, non-genetically modified animals. Right. That Monsanto corn, genetically modified corn, that they'll come in and seize your ranch before growing it without paying them. Rats won't eat that, and they're feeding it to you in every day.
It's making people fat. I mean, there's been studies done. We ran a Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine, and there are studies done showing that these genetically modified foods are creating obesity. They've taken them over to Africa, where people are starving and skin and bones. What happens? They get fat. Not because they're too well fed. It's because the food's not being digested and it stores into their tissue, and it just creates fat, and they're still starving. And that's right in the Bible, too. People will have plenty, and yet they will starve.
And Clay, why should we? This is an abundant universe. I mean, for example, look at energy and engines. We have a plasma engine that produces hydrogen in real time. You don't have to store hydrogen, which is a little explosive. You can produce with a cold plasma. You can produce hydrogen as you need it for your automobile. And this is the type of technologies that are available. But instead, we have these criminals, worldwide criminal organizations, creating scarcity so they can keep people down on the plantation. And your village idea, the Liberty Villages, is going to be so beautiful to have free energy, to have devices that are clean, to have abundant, healthy, nutrient-dense food that's not genetically modified. This is an idea whose time has come.
Each Liberty Village would have a large yurt in the middle of it, and that's where you have your meetings, that's where you have your food, that's your restaurant, and you rent out the teepees so the people from the city can come and see how we are really supposed to live.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful. We're working on similar concepts, and in fact, I do want to talk to you, at length about this, because we've got funding to put up these kinds of villages. We're working with groups, international groups.
I believe if I have the funding, if we have the funding to do these are charter villages. These are charters. You and 10 of your friends, the people that are in your group, you run it. It's run just like the ton, the ancient tribal system. You got 10 families, that makes a ton. So 10 families run it. You compete with each other. So you can have a Mexican village over here. Hey, this is where they got the best tacos out there. You can have a Chinese village down the road. Ooh, love that. I love that sushi. Let's go over to the village near the coast, man. They got the fresh seafood there.
Yeah, beautiful.
And the barbecue, the pork, we get that over there at the Black Village, man, and you can really, it's preserving our culture and taking advantage of all of the technology we got. You can run a plastic tube, and this was done by a Canadian company. You can run a plastic tube around your property. Let's say you got 5 acres, 10 acres here. You run a plastic tube around it, pump water through it, grow algae, and that's the fastest growing plant out there. You know, you got your hemp over there too. That provides you with oil and power and building materials and clothing and paper. But this algae, that can be refined into biodiesel. A company called Vertigo, I believe, is making that up in New Mexico. They said, you know, just in New Mexico, they can make enough biodiesel to run the whole country in.
Beautiful. Well, you know, this is what, and what stands against this are these ideas that we've got to preserve these, you know, crazy illusions like money. We're in it for the money. We've got to make money. We don't need any money. Once these villages are running the way you described, people will just exchange, give to one another. The people who run the restaurant will go and get the vegetables, and the people who produce bread are going to give away the bread, and the people who produce the biodiesel are going to give the biodiesel. And it's all going to be running in a harmony, the way we were intended to live, the way it was on this continent when villages were living in sustainable balance with nature. That's where we need to go.
So here is the evil. This is the true evil that's happening. It should be fine if people at this point of our history, if people want to live in cities and, you know, do Wall Street and be all about money, power, and greed, that's perfectly fine. And people that want to do Liberty Village, or they want to live in, you know, minions of 10 and have, you know, organic gardens and raw milk and all of that, that should be fine. That's truly what a republic allows. But the evil that's happening is that now, because the greed and the power mongers are so, they're like addicts. They can't get enough. They look at it and say, oh, well, hey, there's 50% or 30% or 10% of people that are getting this raw milk. Hey, I want to take that back into my corporate farm. Hey, we need to have everybody using our milk, not this raw milk. We need to have everybody eating this conventional food because, you know, we want to make sure that we put vaccines or whatever toxic crap that they.
Yeah, we certainly don't want them to. We don't want them to live forever. My God, if they were drinking raw milk and it wasn't pasteurized and we weren't feeding them the poisons, man, they'd live to be they could live to be 300 or 400. You know. Yeah,
I was really disappointed in National Geographic, the whole propaganda piece and population thing. And you know, Buckminster Fuller had said that, you know, 25 billion people can live comfortably on this planet, and we're only at 6 billion right now. So, you know, it's like this kind of mentality is just, again, it's about power and greed. It's about control, and it's not necessary.
Well, this whole drug war, you know, that's about control. Ayn Rand had it right. She said, you know, government has no control over honest citizens, so they have to make criminals out of us. And we got corporate farms. I mean, you know, come on, folks. I did a year and a half in prison for having a joint. You know, for having a joint on me in Texas. You know, 40 years ago.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, you mentioned a comment about sovereignty. This whole attempt to eradicate sovereignty. I mean, if we go back to Teddy Roosevelt, he made one of the best statements, and he called the American people sovereign. And he said the thing about a sovereign is you have to take responsibility for your decisions. A sovereign exercises their power responsibly. And we are sovereigns. It's there in the Constitution. It's there in the words of the President. But the question is, you know, are we going to take responsibility for our thoughts, words, and deeds? Or are we going to try to go for the limited liability gospel that these corporations are pumping out so they can be sovereign over the people? And that's the real evil going on in our culture today.
That's right. That's right. And you know, it's we're in a war. They want you to be, and I don't outside of the technology, I don't really see much difference between this and our captivity in Syria or Egypt. You know, they needed people to build those pyramids, and you know, it was a form of slavery. They've just refined the art of slavery to the point the slaves don't know they're slaves. I'm
That's
not.
right.
I'm
Then you
not.
get your slave surveillance number, SSN, Social Security number, and then you feel better. Somehow you're not a slave because you have a surveillance number and you get a little check, and after all, they're taking care of you.